Since its independence in 1776, the United States of America has been involved in numerous military conflicts. When looking back on history, many were done in the name of justice and freedom, but just as many were not. An estimated 1.3 million Americans have been killed and 1.5 million wounded throughout the history of this country in combat. The first major conflict of the 20th century was World War I. World War I was fought between the Allied powers, which included France, Russia, Britain, Italy, Japan, and the United States, and the Central Powers, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. This conflict lasted from July 1914 to November 1918. An estimated 16 million people died directly from the war, 116,000 of those being Americans. The second major conflict of the 20th century was World War II. World War II was fought between the Allied powers, which included the United States, Britain, Russia, China, and most of Europe, and the Axis powers, which included Germany, Italy, and Japan. This conflict lasted from September 1939 to September 1945. An estimated 24 million soldiers died, 405,000 of those being Americans, and over 50 million civilians. The next major conflict was the Korean War. This military conflict was a product of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. Communist North Korea, backed by the Soviet Union and China, fought against the United Nations, primarily made up of American troops. This war lasted from June 1950 to July 1953, but a peace treaty was never signed. An estimated 700,000 soldiers were killed, 54,000 of those being Americans. The Vietnam War was a continuation of the Cold War. It was fought between North Vietnam with backing from China, the Soviet Union, and other communist allies, and South Vietnam, the United States, and other anti-communist allies. This war lasted 19 years, from November 1955 to April 1975. The result was North Vietnamese victory, as the United States pulled out all of its forces. Vietnam was unified under communist rule, as well as Laos and Cambodia. An estimated 1.1 million soldiers died, 58,000 of those being American, and millions more civilians. The second longest conflict in American history is the war in Afghanistan, also known as Operation Enduring Freedom. This war began in response to the September 11th terrorist attacks organized and executed by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. The Taliban refused to extradite Al-Qaeda leaders suspected of planning the attack. The United States and the United Kingdom invaded Afghanistan in October of 2001 and were later joined by the other NATO forces. This was the beginning of a different kind of warfare for U.S. troops, with heavy urban fighting and improvised explosive attacks. The U.S. oversaw a transition to a newly democratically elected government and trained and built up the Afghan military and police force. In late December of 2014, NATO and UK forces officially ended all combat operations, while the United States today still has around 13,000 troops fighting the Taliban. An estimated 120,000 soldiers have been killed, 2,500 of those being American, and over 30,000 civilians.